I said I was going to wait till Thursday. I said I was going to wait till Thursday or Friday to talk myself into a win, and I'm going to try my best to do so. I'm not sure Oklahoma's even that good. We'll talk about that, and we'll also talk about something more important, which is that South Carolina has an instant upgrade at offensive line after just 2 days of practice under Shawn Elliott. We'll talk about that and more. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. I hope everyone's having a fantastic Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, whenever you are listening to this. Got a good show for you. But first, I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we are a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcast, as well as on YouTube. So thank you for making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Also, today's episode brought to you by our friends at the Game Time app. It's very simple. Download the app and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $20 off your first purchase. It is that simple, and it is also that great. Get in the game with Game Time. All right, so let's get into this. We did the show about Lonnie Teasley and him being out, and it's been a couple days. I've seen this a little bit on social media, so I'm going to try to tread carefully here. We're going to start here with Shawn Elliott and what I think he is going to bring to the table as an offensive line coach. Then, after that, we're going to start talking about a little bit of reasons to believe for Oklahoma. I think I've done like 4 shows for Oklahoma podcasts, whether it be we got a Locked On one coming out. We have another one tomorrow with On 3. Did one earlier with On 3. And then one with Teddy Lehman and Gabe Bickford from the OU Sooner Scoop out of something. And we talk about a lot about Oklahoma today. And there's one thing that I've noticed, and there's not a ton of confidence coming out of these guys. And that kind of had me curious. And, I love diving into numbers. And there are some things that I think that are paths to a potential win for South Carolina. We're going to get into that into the second part. And then third, we are going to talk about the Chloe Kidd situation and her torn ACL. Won't be a ton of anything new because there's not as much to report. It just sucks. It's terrible. But they do have the women's basketball rankings came out today, the top 25 rankings. And South Carolina found themselves very highly ranked and first in the SEC. We'll talk about that in the third segment. Let's get started with where I said we would start because we're organized and structured. And we got a background now, guys. Are you seeing this? Side note, good call to everyone that peer pressured me into finally doing this because it looks significantly better than in just the plain white background. Even this little stupid shelf over here wasn't doing us any justice. So I appreciate you guys for that. I'm in a great mood. I hope you guys are as well. Let's get into it. So Shawn Elliott is taking over the offensive line. You guys have heard me talk about him before. I think he is a really, really significant piece on this coaching staff before he was upgraded to O-line coach. I have said this for a couple of weeks, and you guys know it. And it's not just because they underperformed to the offensive line. It's just because I think that Shawn Elliott, I'm a big believer in him as a coach and what he's been able to get out of different units, and especially get out of the run game at places he's been, the emphasis on it, and more importantly, because we can talk about all the numbers you want, but his very palpable, very what's the best way to put this? What's a word that I'm trying to look for? Because you guys know I'm not great with words. I'm also recording until like 8:45 at night. Very present physicality, intensity, and like focus on how to get better. All of that is like it's like he's the type of guy I feel like you hear before you see. He is intense. If you've seen any of the videos of him getting his team's pumped at Georgia State, he was going through, it felt like O-line drills with every single one of his players while they were in lines or stretching lines before the game. He is a physical dude that wants people to be physical that play for him. And I think that shows with his past stops, especially what they did at Georgia State. That is going to be something that is going to be seen from this offensive line. I have a feeling no matter how tomorrow night on Wednesday night, that first injury and availability report is going to come out. We will learn about Hay. We'll learn about Henry. We'll figure out if Marky Anderson can go. I don't know. We'll see if Surratt is feeling any better. I don't feel super great that you're going to all of a sudden have a non-patchwork offensive line. I do think you're going to come out and play with a little bit more energy and focus and intensity from that unit. And you'll need to, because this is a very, very good Oklahoma defense. And the best position by far on the field for them, including John Mateer, is the defensive front four. So I look at this in the front four and I say, how can you figure out a way to keep Lenoris upright, to keep him not constantly running for his life like he was the other day? But more importantly, how can you just take a step forward? Because that's the biggest thing at this point of the season, where you're just looking for steps forward. Yes, I want to win. Yes, I want to win. But I would love to watch this unit and watch them not have a ton of pre-snap penalties. Think about how many penalties have been called on the offensive line. And I should have the number in front of me, and I don't. But think about how many penalties have been called on the offensive line. Only 2 have been holding this year. I saw this on Twitter, so it's got to be true. But you think about all the pre-snap penalties today. Some of in the post practice press conference. That's a lot of P's. In the post-practice press conference, Beamer was talking about just what the plan is for Elliott moving over as the new O-line coach. Now, keep in mind, he also was in charge of the offensive line in the unit, worked with the unit at least under Steve Spurrier in 2010 to 2015. It was the run game coordinator then, and then also 1 year under Will Muschamp in 2016. He was the offensive line coach at App State from 2001 2009. This is something he's really good at. And to be quite frank, it felt like he was better suited for that way more than he ever was for the tight end thing. Nonetheless, it's a guy that you want to get on the staff and is a huge upgrade no matter what position he's on. So you have to do that. So this is one of the first things that I hear. He said how confident he is that a different voice will cut down the number of penalties. This is what Shane Beamer said today to the media. Confident, but then you also turn on the tape against Oklahoma and you see how active they are. I think they're right at the top of the SEC in sacks and TFLs. That is the hope, certainly, that we can cut down pre-snap penalties. Today at practice, Shawn was literally lined up across from center pretty much every play of practice, screaming, yelling, clapping, barking, blowing whistles, making move calls himself, just trying to make things as difficult as possibly can. Would it be nice to say we're going to go out there and have 0 pre-snap penalties on Saturday? Yes, it would be nice to say that. Is that realistic? I don't know, but it definitely needs to be less than. I think we had 6 on offense the other night alone. I think of those 6, 5 were on the offensive line. Yeah, we need to cut down on that without a doubt. Maybe a different voice will help us do that. We've been trying to emphasize it and implement it even more in practice, but a different voice in that room may help just from a mental standpoint of the scheme we're asking them to run, what we're asking them to do on the play once the ball is snapped, but then also leading up to the snap too, the things that are going to be in our minds. So that's one positive. Here's the other thing he said, okay? On the mental approach that Shawn Elliott brings to the room, is that where he can have an immediate impact? And this is where I believe more than anything, you're going to have immediate impact. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, you know what, they're going to go out there and they're going to impose their will on the offensive line. And Josiah Thompson all of a sudden is going to be the 5-star that we want him to be. And they're going to start opening up running lanes. They're going to protect Sellers. He's going to have time to throw and blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying any of that. What I am saying, as someone that's watched this team for half a season, sometimes you don't want coach speak. You don't want things that are just there to appease you. You don't want somebody to just say something to placate you and make you feel better. But I think we're kind of at the point where in some capacity, and in some instances, yeah, I want that. I like to be coddled a little bit at this point, guys. I'll be honest with you. I would love for the coaching staff to tap me on the head and say, it's going to be okay, bud. Everything's going to be okay. You know what I mean? Hey, slugger. I don't think you do that in the face. I think you do it on the shoulder. I don't know. But like, I think that whole mentality, I know I'm partially joking the way I'm phrasing it, but yeah, I would love to feel better about where we're at as an offensive line and say, you know what, this coach has gone out there and he's doing things a little bit differently, and him going out there and having this new approach and a focus on at least saying this needs a change right now. Here's something we did at practice today to fix it, because I haven't really heard that throughout the season. Now, that's not to say that Lonnie Teasley not lining up and barking, screaming, yelling, blowing whistles was the reason they weren't a good unit. But I will tell you, at this point, any sort of focus on change, any sort of focus on doing something different than what we've seen for the first 6 games, And I'll tell you what, not just the offensive line, but across the board in some cases offensively, I'm on board for. I want to hear that. So I'm glad they did that. All right, we're going to go to our first break here, pay some bills. Appreciate you guys tuning in. We got a good episode, like I said. We'll get to more of what Beamer said today about Shawn Elliott, because I think, I mean, listen, maybe I'm just trying to find something to hang on to, but I think there's a lot to believe in here. When we come back, we're also going to sit here and talk a little bit more about some reasons to believe and some things you need to know about Oklahoma. And we're gonna do some self-reflection and things that South Carolina has to fix, but also some areas they have a little bit of an advantage in as we get to know the Sooners going through this week. Before we do that, want to say a quick shout out to our friends at Wayfair. The holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting, but getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot. Maybe your serveware needs a refresh, or the guest room could use new bedding. Maybe I need serveware in general because I never heard of it until reading this ad read for the second straight day. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home holiday ready, from Christmas trees to wreaths and bedding, cookware, and even outdoor inflatables. It's your one-stop shop for every room in the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and budget. And with free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. Get organized, refresh, and ready for the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Also want to give a shout out to our friends at FanDuel. Guys, we're in the midst. I think I told you this last week. I think we're on starting last Wednesday, or I think it was last Wednesday. We were in the middle of 49 straight days of football of some sort. There's NFL, there's college. We got Wednesday night action or Tuesday night action right now. I think FIU is playing. Yeah, I don't even know what that is. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets and across the app to use at your disposal and at your pleasure. My favorite thing about FanDuel, live, up to the minute, stats, odds, numbers, totals, all that kind of stuff. You can bet what happens next. You can bet on drives. You can bet on the end result of a first drive. Pepper, you can bet if she's going to bark during a show. The odds are pretty low on that one because it happens a lot. But you can do all these things at FanDuel, except for the betting on Pepper. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. We'll be right back with more Locked On Gamecocks right after this. All right, we're back with more Locked On Gamecocks. Hope you guys are having a enjoyable time, at least watching the show and all that good stuff. Where do we want to go? Where do we want to go from here? So back to the Elliott thing. I want to touch on a couple of things that Beamer said that I thought were pretty important and good to hear. And one of the things he brought up was the mental approach that Shawn Elliott brings to the room. Is that where you can have an immediate impact, right? And I touched on it right before the break about how I feel about where he is or what he is as a coach, what he brings most to the table, and that's probably what it is. This is exactly what Beamer had to say. If he can have an immediate impact. Yeah, I think so. It's a little bit of both. There are physical things from a technique standpoint. Now we have to line up and block inside zone play, or how we line up and block the counter play. As far as who's blocking who, that's not going to change. The techniques you use to make those blocks, there's some things that maybe Shawn believes in a little bit more so than Lonnie did. There will be some changes from a physical standpoint with that. Yes, some terminology, the mental aspect, there's no question about it. Calls on the offensive line, whether it be for protection, run game that Shawn's more comfortable with. We're not asking guys to learn a new offense, but little tweaks mentally for sure. I love that. I love that. I thought that was really I thought that was great. I thought that was great. The other part of it was this. He asked this is the first question that was asked. He said, on blocking schemes, how different is Elliott's approach from Teasley's? He said, and I think he's joking when he says this, if I was Oklahoma, I would go back and study every game that Shawn had as a head coach at Georgia State, every game that he coached here as an offensive line coach, and every game that he coached at App State. There's a good start for them and everything. Having said that, now he's obviously being a little bit facetious and tongue-in-cheek here, talking about going to watch 24 years of tape. Having said that, in all seriousness, certainly there's going to be things in the run game that he really likes that maybe we haven't been doing as much that will add. Certainly, we're going to add some things to the scheme, but we're also, you can't just blow everything up and say, okay, all of a sudden we're going to become a whatever type team when we haven't been doing it all season. So we're going to continue to do what we do, but there will be some new twists to it and off of it. There may be one or two new schemes that he feels like he wants to implement. So there will be some new schematic changes. I think more than anything, it's just a different voice in that room. Every coach is different. My style is different than Kirby Smart's style or Steve Spurrier's head coach. Every coach is different, and you got to be who you are. Lonnie Teasley's style of coaching is different than Shawn Elliott's. It doesn't make one right or one wrong. It's just different. So that'll probably be the biggest thing. It's just the coaching style and the voice in that room. There will be some things that we've tweaked already, just in regards to technique things and terminology of how we call some things that Shawn's more comfortable with. Blah blah blah. I'm going to give you my honest takeaway from some of this, and it may be way off base, but I'm just telling you what my reaction to this is. It feels weird to me a little bit that we kind of are having to like dance around all these, like it almost feels like, and I've done it too, where it's like you say something, you have to have this like, you have to preface what we're saying about the run game and the problems and the struggles offensive line has had, while also being like, it's not Lonnie Teasley's fault. He did a good job, and that's whatever. But I think one thing that's gotten lost in some of this is still a business, and the business of this is also winning football games. And this is like, I think Lonnie Teasley's a great guy, a great recruiter, a good dude, good family man, all that kind of stuff. But like, we don't need to keep talking about that in terms of like, hey man, thanks so much for the effort. Like, let's just go fix it and move on. Like, let's go fix it and move on. So that part feels weird to me, that there's a little bit of this like having to save someone's feelings from being hurt, when if we're being honest, like no one's calling him names or saying anything bad or like it's a bad unit. It was a bad job. That's fine to say. There's things that I'm not great at. Like that if somebody said, like, remember, like if you said other people had a better background than you or better mic equipment or whatever, that's like, there's no you're not hurting my feelings with that. That's a factual thing. It's time to get this thing corrected and move on. So putting Elliott in that position isn't because we're trying to save someone's feelings from getting hurt. Go win football games. That's what matters. Like that's what matters. And I hope that moving forward, that is the focus, because it needs to be from an administration level, from a staff level, and from a team level. You need to go win football games. Now, getting into Oklahoma, there are things about this Oklahoma team that are really impressive that could give South Carolina fits. John Mateer is really good. We all know that. The defensive front four had 10 sacks against Auburn. They're really good. We all know that. Here's the thing that we're not really talking that enough about, in my opinion, okay? And that's this. They're not world beaters. And here's the thing that my biggest takeaway I came away with today is the confidence level they have is not anything that's crazy over the top. The Texas thing and the loss to Texas and the way they lost kind of shattered a lot of their confidence from that loss. When they were undefeated, they were a top 10 team. I think they were a top 5 team. And you're talking about a team that played with a banged up quarterback, but everyone's banged up at this point. And you were going to play a team that just lost to Florida, was coming off that loss. And it's not like they played a murderer's row. I think they played the 63rd ranked strength of schedule in the year. I believe. I'll have to double check that. But Oklahoma, like, I think as I look at this, and if I'm being objective about this, and I'm not trying to say this as like sunshine pumping or being a homer in favor of South Carolina. But what I would say is it feels like this is a team that we saw them beat a blue blood team like Michigan at home. And we were like, that's a good win. John Mateer looks good in this offense. They're so much better than they were last year, right? Then we saw them beat Auburn. And they did so in a game where everybody was watching, right? It was a 2:30 start. It got a ton of views. And then it had a bunch of also craziness that happened in that game from the refs, and people were constantly talking about it. So we got a lot of run. But what it also had was a win. Get over here, Pepper. It had a win. She doesn't want to listen to anybody. They have a win for Oklahoma, so now they're undefeated. Then they have, they go beat the brakes off Temple. They are a good football team, but we have really, I think, almost like this weird it's like we have like an elasticity attached to them of, well, Texas we thought was going to be great, and they're not very good. So naturally, Oklahoma must be a lot better than we thought. We weren't giving them any credit because of their schedule. Well, one of the reasons you weren't giving them credit is because of all the question marks they had coming into the season, the track record you've seen with Brent Venables, and then also what was on the schedule. It sucks this is an 11:45 start, but this Oklahoma team is not, they're not world beaters. Okay. They're not world beaters. And I think they do a lot of things well. But I will also tell you this. I don't think John Mateer got healthier going to play a football game against one of the nation's best defenses and with a banged up right thumb on his throwing hand. I don't think he got healthier in that game. He also missed a lot of time in practice, and that was clearly visible in that game. Here's the other thing too. Like some of these additions they have made, like we have been talking about this team like they are world beaters, or they should be like contending for a national title. And I think part of it's because they beat Auburn, who's a bad football team, and they beat Michigan, who's an average football team, with a true freshman quarterback on the road. So now you look at this, and this is their first true road game. The only other time they've left Norman, Oklahoma, is when they went to play Temple at the link where the Eagles play. Brother, that's not the same as Williams-Brice Stadium. And the fans need to make sure they feel that, for one. They need to make sure they feel that. You look at some of these numbers, and listen, it's my job to cover college football. Even I admittedly looked at this, and I was like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That is a little bit surprising to hear. They are 10th in the SEC in points per game at 29.2. They are 11th in total yards per game at 389. They are 5th in passing, but they are 13th in rushing. They have not been able to establish the run, and the way that some of the media talked about this was this might be a get-right game for them to try to establish the run. I had heard the same thing last week for LSU, and LSU did run the ball pretty well. But I will tell you this idea that they're going to be able to just line up and hand the ball off with an injured quarterback and go on the road and beat South Carolina in Williams-Brice that's a fool's errand, guys. Like, you're not going to sit here and tell me that the team that hasn't played a true road game, I'm pretty sure that Temple game had like 12,000 fans. Walking into Williams-Brice on the road, a true road environment, there's a part of me that looks at this and it's like, if this thing gets out of hand, I hope the students stay for the second half. It's going to be probably pretty hot, I'm assuming, because it's always hot for a noon kick, even though it's October. But, like, there's a path to win this game. I think part of it starts with being one of the most ferocious environments in the country. But these numbers, again, I think we put a ton of stock into this idea that Oklahoma's awesome because John Mateer is awesome. John Mateer has 6 touchdown passes and 6 interceptions on the season. Those are not Heisman numbers. You have the second most interceptions of any quarterback in the country. What does this defense do? Turns you over. Like burping a newborn, it turns you over. I think that's how you burp a newborn. Sometimes you just do this. I don't know. Way too much just dad terminology now. I'm not good at that. But anyway, you understand the point that I'm trying to make, I hope. That is all for my soapbox I'll get on today about Oklahoma. We will get more into it. I'm about to go film another crossover pod with some guys about the Oklahoma game as well. We'll have that lit up in the week, but I promise you this, we're going to have an episode a day come out just from us on this channel for every single game for every single day this week. It's not just crossovers. When we come back, we'll talk briefly about Chloe Kitts, the injury, what it means, and what it means for the South Carolina team and projections for this year's women's basketball team, because media days have begun for men and women. Before we do that, let's give a quick little shout out. Let's pay one more bill, guys. What do you say? One more bill. Game time. College football is back. It's been back for a while. I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, and there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself sometimes, if we are being honest. Listen, there's endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, all the above. And I'm going to pull it up right now and see what we have for this weekend. But that's why I use Game Time, because the app that gives the advantage back to the fans is the app I want to use. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I'm clicking on this right now. I'm talking about right now in real time, pulling up the Game Time app, and I've got tickets. The lowest I see right now, $64. But here's the good news. Those numbers drop actually I see 56 as the game gets closer. Even better, you can get lower level pretty close to the field for under $160. And with Game Time, anything last minute, the prices actually go down. You can also do stuff like zone deals where you pick a section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've ever bought tickets. I love it. So should you. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right. Let me tell them we're wrapping up the show now. Let's get to the last part. And this part sucks. Hold, please. There we go. So as I said yesterday, and I'm sure you guys already all know, Chloe Kitts tears her ACL, is out for her senior season. I don't know. Like, I'm reacting to this in real time. I don't know what all this means. She had a very uplifting post about it. I will tell you what was surprising to me, because she posted about it. Obviously not what we wanted for my senior year, but I can't wait to help coach and try to get like as much help, or give as much help as I can from the bench, even though I'm not playing. When the news came out, what surprised me most is how big of an impact it had from like a national media standpoint, where this was one of the top stories on the side of ESPN.com. It was, and this is on a Monday when you got Monday Night Football coming up, you got NFL games that just played, all the stuff with their bowl projections that come out every week for college football, NBA starting up. This was one of the top stories. Listen, she started 38 games last year. She averaged 10 points and 7.7 rebounds. She was the MVP of the SEC tournament and the Birmingham Regional. As a sophomore, she started 31 games, averaged 9 points and 6 rebounds. Obviously, the numbers went up last year. She was, I think, your focal point coming back, especially as a senior leader on this team, and it sucks. The comment that was made from Staley was, "We hate this for Chloe. She's worked incredibly hard to become the best version of herself on the court this season. Her teammates are capable of stepping up, and I know that her competitive fire and tenacity will be felt from the sidelines as she pours what she can into them to ensure our team's success. She's projected as a first-round WNBA draft pick next spring. She could still enter the draft or opt to return for another college season." That's all we know. I don't know what the plan is on replacing her. I will say that her comment when she said, "We have big things ahead," I still believe it, and so does the national media as well. Because anytime you lose arguably your best player in any sport, but your best player, especially in women's basketball, I tell you what, I would have assumed if you were 15th in the country, maybe you dropped to 16. But number 2 in the country in the preseason poll that came out today after we heard this news was pretty, I think, telling of how much talent is still going to be on this team, and it should be a lot of fun. She's recruited her ass off. Talking about Don Staley, this team should be really, really good once again. And when is it not? You know what I mean? So we are getting pretty close to the season starting. Very excited about it. They've come to LSU this year, so I'll probably be here for that. But also, we will make a trip to Columbia for sure and get to watch some of the men's and women's games, because I think both will be even more competitive than the women were last year, and definitely more competitive on the men's side. Very excited about college basketball this year. I get the feeling, too, from the men's side that Lamont Paris has got a couple things up his sleeve and is a little bit more confident with the roster he has going into this season. So that is all for today's show. I appreciate you guys. We will have this thing up and available to watch as soon as I'm done. So until next time, go Cox.